Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of ChatArgos, the ChainArgos weekly podcast, which nobody calls it that.
Forgot that was the name.
Yeah, my name is Patrick Tan, General Counsel for ChainArgos. We're the blockchain analytics firm and intelligence firm, actually, that was made famous for outing Binance's $1.4 billion BUSD under collateralization. With me, as usual, every week, my CEO and Chief Data Scientist, Jonathan Reiter. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for the comments. Thank you for the likes. Thank you for the subscribes. We appreciate it. That's why we love doing this show. But we would do this show even if nobody was watching, to be honest. So thank you for tuning in. We have three interesting things to talk to you about this week. We're going to talk about some of our latest, well, they're not revelations, so I just want to make this perfectly clear that we've had this information for a long time. We just let it stew in the back for a long time before we released it.
It makes a good demo.
So this is about Polygon and some of the tokens there. If you haven't been following us on Twitter, why not? But if you have, you'll know what we're talking about. Basically, we just document some interesting flows there. We'll get into the details of that shortly. We're going to talk a little bit about unblacklisting. We've seen some peculiar unblacklisting behavior over the past week, which we want to share with you. And then finally, we'll talk to you about Chainalysis and what their definition of crime means and why is that a slippery slope to be traveling up and down.
Well, they've changed it in a way that's, it now makes more sense than before. So
more on that towards the end of the show. Yeah, so let's talk about Polygon. And if you're not familiar with Polygon, odds are you're not really into crypto or anything. But Polygon is, long story short, it's a big layer 2 scaling project that built atop, and they had an ICO and stuff like that. I'm not going to go into the full details of that. But essentially, they had a published, they had a token issuance that they had published on Binance's, together with Binance's Launchpad. Now, a bit of backstory, Binance's Launchpad was created, I think 2018. 2018 was when the Binance Launchpad was created. And the point of that was because after the ICO bubble had truly just gone completely flat, Binance thought that, one of the ways that it could help, projects is to sort of give projects the imprimatur of the Binance endorsement to say that, okay, we're going to, the tokens for these projects will be listed on Binance, so you get liquidity and stuff like that. So they created this thing called the Binance Launchpad. Long story short, Polygon created the MATIC tokens, and these had a sort of vesting schedule that they said that they would adhere to, and X amount would go to staking, X amount would go to early participants, X amount would go to the ecosystem fund, blah blah blah. But what happened?
Okay, yeah. So there's a total of 10 billion MATIC tokens. We're not even quite at the end of the issuance yet. There's a lock contract, whatever, somewhere. So they published a schedule of what the issuance would be and what they would be allocated to over time. Yeah, as Patrick says, ecosystem fund. The rest of it, and you can get this information as public. That's fine, and you can find most of the relevant addresses just tagged even on Etherscan. So you can find there's money allocated to the Polygon ecosystem fund. There's an ecosystem fund wallet, marketing and ecosystem fund. There's a foundation wallet. There's a whole bunch of this kind of stuff. So we went through just to map out where the money went and then where it was sent, and compared that to what the expected, claimed, predicted, whatever the plan token flows were, and in an unsurprising turn of events, they don't exactly match. So I guess the first feature that's interesting, the tokens were put into a lock contract, linear unlock over whatever, a couple of years, almost finished now, I think. And the tokens that come out of the lock contract don't exactly match the schedule that you'd want, but it looks more like maybe somebody was doing this manually a bit sloppily. They were locked. No one's saying they weren't locked. It's just that the way these lock contracts generally work is you have to go in and claim them, and it tells you how many are left over. And those claimings were done, kind of vaguely related to what they're supposed to be. Fine. All of that stuff comes out and goes through a wallet or two. You can all see this fairly clearly in what we've written and on chain, even on Etherscan for some of it, into a foundation wallet, which is then doing the distributions. So I guess I will make clear the token allocation that was supposed to happen is not 100% to the foundation. It's a bunch of other stuff, and mechanically they send it all to the foundation and then allocated it out from there. So that's not necessarily wrong. that's one way of working the process. They didn't promise which wallets they would use. What's interesting is if you look at where the money comes out of the foundation wallet, then it goes to the staking wallet, the ecosystem fund, the early investors, Binance Launchpad. Binance, as part of the Launchpad deal, got a bunch of your tokens. And that's where things start to kind of go off the rails. So, for example, it is a delegated proof of stake chain, and a large amount of the initial token allocation was supposed to be fed linearly over a period of time into the staking contract. History of Polygon, there was no staking contract at the beginning. It was a centralized process, and staking was added over time, whatever. Before the staking contract was deployed, the first slug of 400 million tokens was sent to a wallet that's labeled on Etherscan as part of Binance, and it just was fed out the other side of that wallet to Binance exchange wallets. It's labeled as Binance 33. It is not an exchange wallet. It does not have a lot of transactions. Go to Etherscan, look at Binance 33. There's not much going on there. It's clearly some kind of a special investment holding, whatever thing. And you can see these tokens just being sent out in large batches to Binance exchange, trading, whatever, hot wallets. The wallet that they're sent to also receives a similarly suspicious flow out the back of the marketing and ecosystem fund wallet. So the tokens go into the ecosystem fund wallet, and then they go out to this other joint exfiltration route, and then the stuff all gets dumped to Binance.
So TLDR, why does all this matter? Okay, imagine this. You have to remember, we got to go back in time a bit to, I think 2019 was when this was done, if I recall.
It's 19, 20, 21.
Yeah, correct. So you have to go back in time. So the idea was this. When you had an ICO, it was very common for the project's founders to say, hey, look, we're not going to, obviously, we if all the tokens flood the market, even somebody who doesn't know how a market works, if all the tokens flood the market, the price is going to collapse. But at the same time, we do need some monies to be locked away. So there would be monies that would be locked away. There would be tokens that couldn't be sold right off the bat. And also we would allocate a certain percentage to things like staking, whatever. But there would be some small amount that could be sold just to, for like expenses, ecosystem development, marketing, getting, incentivizing people to develop apps on top of the chain, whatever. So the idea was that if it was going to a staking contract, it would stay inside the staking contract so that okay, I know that 1.2 billion tokens, for instance, is not going to be hitting the market. It's not going to be depressing the price, so that if I'm an early investor or if I'm an investor in Polygon, I would think about, okay, I know that 1.2 billion is going to be stuck. Now, the problem with this is that, okay, so in the staking wallet specifically, what the documents, and to this day, the documents still say that, is that the staking wallet is supposed to contain 400 million MATIC tokens, and that number is supposed to go up to $1.2 billion in the staking wallet to, generate returns, whatever. Long story short, $1.2 billion worth, not dollars, 1.2 billion tokens would be locked away in this staking thing. Now, if you look at the staking wallet, it didn't start off at 400 million. It started off at 0. And it went up to 800 million, which meant 400 million that should have gone to the staking wallet didn't. So that 400 million basically was spirited out the back.
It should have gone into staking. The staking wallet didn't exist at that
time.
So
yeah.
You could claim there was some kind of on-exchange staking and they were holding it for them. But then it would have been sent to the staking wallet, not to, the Binance hot wallet.
And the marketing and ecosystem thing went in. And if you plot this against a price chart, you'll notice that the time that this stuff was done coincided with a very general decline in the price of MATIC.
Yeah, these transfers tend to start happening right before and then, a peak and a collapse in price. We've even found so there's sort of two phases of this. Part of it happens in 2021 and then part of it happens 2020 and 2022, early 2023. There are even some research piece type things associated with the time the sales start, which suggests there may have been some coordination around keep the price up so we can sell these tokens. I mean, I would say for the marketing and ecosystem fund, while they were intended to incentivize people's participation in stuff, generally speaking, you were supposed to give away these tokens and then people could use them and or sell them themselves. The marketing and ecosystem fund wasn't supposed to be selling 8-figure amounts incrementally on exchange. That was not what the incentive was supposed to be, right? The project, you give away project tokens. You don't sell the project tokens for dollars and give away dollars. That doesn't really feel right, does it? And we in fact documented that large incident. So that's a total of about, I think it's 767 million tokens between the strange staking flows and then some other strange, the marketing and ecosystem flows. Since no one ever responded to that, lots of people tweeted stuff at various people who maybe should respond to this. We published an additional roughly 200 million tokens. I think it's 178 million tokens. These tokens have had prices something like $1 to $2 on average over the period of time in which this has been happening. The high is a bit over 4, and the current price is like 80 cents. But these are approximate amounts, something like $1 billion total. And that is a collection of tokens associated with some other parts of the whatever ecosystem. You can go look at what wallets those are and what we've published. But it's a similar thing where tokens sort of go out of a wallet, doesn't quite make sense, and then later you notice that the intermediary on the way to the exchange is receiving 120 million tokens from here, 40 million tokens from there, 30 million tokens from here, and then sending all of them to the hot wallet. These are not amounts that individual project investor types would be sent. You can see in wallets that are also disclosed, a large number of tokens go in and 500,000 tokens, 200,000 tokens, 1.5 million tokens, what are clearly distributions to investors, developers, participants, whatever. Nobody's getting, 50 million tokens 3 times in a row. Those are larger amounts, right? The allocation schedule does indicate sort of what amount goes to early developers and incentivization, whatever. And there you can see small non-round amounts being paid all over the place. These are more like round tens of millions of tokens at a slug straight to Binance hot wallets, which is not what anybody expected.
So there you go.
Although frankly, it's not astonishing.
So there you go. This is evidence of a very large project not really doing. Well, it's not even not doing what they said they do. I mean, but quite clearly they were selling out the bag.
I mean, it's conceivable that they weren't doing that and there's something else going on here. But the fact that no one's actually noticed, asked, responded, had any kind of back and forth, this is from years ago. We've been demoing this to people publicly for months. I mean, I say publicly, the demos aren't on YouTube, but whatever. Maybe we should put one of them on YouTube. And nobody's looked, nobody's asked. In order to figure this out, you do need some more machinery to analyze data because the foundation wallet's very busy, the staking wallet has lots of flows, whatever. But some of the intermediary wallets are tiny, and people who care should be able to figure this stuff out. This is not a case where advanced math is required to unwind a mixer. Right? This is relatively straightforward, adding up the flows from point A to point B.
So, moving on to unblacklisting, this was interesting as well. Some peculiar unblacklisting behavior we've seen over the past week.
Yeah, so 3 Tether wallets. So these are wallets blacklisted by Tether. So 3 wallets have been unblacklisted this week. 1 and then a pair of wallets. And in both cases, it's hard to understand maybe why they were blacklisted, maybe why they were unblacklisted, and how effective the blacklisting really turned out to be. So in one case, this is the more recent case of 2 wallets, you can see that there's an exchange withdrawal for $250,000,
something like that. $200,000 worth of Tether.
And then that money is sent to, small amounts are sent to the 2 wallets that are a few days after this exchange withdrawal blacklisted. But then it's also sent to a different exchange to be deposited for like 99% of the amount total across 3 addresses, which were deposited before the blacklist was put in place. And then these 2 tiny holding wallets got blacklisted in June of last year, and then they just got unblacklisted. Okay. I mean, that doesn't make a tremendous amount of sense. Either they tried to, some victim complained, some scam victim or whatever. The pattern is vaguely similar to what we see in pig butchering scam type. Money withdrawn from exchange, sent somewhere, deposited to obscure exchange. In that case, maybe the person complained, but they'd already exfiltrated 99% of the money. So it sounds like the blacklisting, it worked mechanically, but it didn't capture much of the money.
I guess the strange thing is, okay, so we looked at these transactions, right? One of them was like, so they managed to capture like 2,000.
2,000 out of 259,000.
But they all occurred on the same day.
Yeah, not in the same second, but all very close to each other.
All very close to each other on the same day. So I thought it was interesting that they managed to capture those bits. Why didn't they capture the rest?
It's possible that the blacklist only got put in place like 2 days later.
Yeah.
So maybe they didn't what we normally see off-ramping for this stuff is a use of a large number of accounts for smaller amounts in total to avoid I guess, detection, being shut down, whatever. Fair enough. Maybe these amounts were still pending being exfiltrated, or maybe this was just sort of left there as a, oh, look, when they complain, blacklist this, and it'll give you some money to capture. I mean, we don't know what happened, but it's confusing. Now, the other case, which is from earlier in the week, Monday or Tuesday, so here you have a wallet that was blacklisted quite a long time ago, has funds in it, and of course, as soon as the Tether was unfrozen, it gets transferred out. Okay. It received payments from a Eastern European payment processor called Mercurio that we talked about a little while ago that Thomson Reuters has done some work on.
You should read that.
Just before the unblacklisting. So now those were payments in Ether, which are not blacklistable in that sense, nothing to do with Tether, but it is interesting to note that transfers from a strange money transmitter that's known to have some possible regulatory problems occurred into a wallet right before Tether unblacklisted it, and of course you need to transfer ETH into these things to pay the gas fees for transferring it out. So that is similarly confusing and suspicious. It's not obvious why this thing got frozen in the first place either. I think it was frozen in 2021. It was certainly much longer ago than the other incident. It's less obvious what happened there. It is suspicious that they received funds right before they got unblacklisted. I mean, if you saw a frozen wallet, ETH got sent in, and then the wallet got unfrozen, and that ETH was effectively used to pay gas for transferring the formerly frozen funds out, you would say, there's, I don't know what, but something we don't know about happened here, right? Something that
it's almost as if you had a crystal ball.
It is. I mean, that's not a coincidence, right? There is a connection. We don't know what the connection is, but there is a connection. I mean, it could very well be that the most, I guess, clearly the dodgy version is there's a bunch of people doing really sketchy stuff, and they're friends with the Tether guys, and they paid the money in advance, whatever. The other version is that this dodgy money transmitter has been compromised. Law enforcement's got them, and they use that to get the stuff unfrozen and then transfer.
And then transfer it out to like a holding wallet or something. Yeah, it's possible.
It could be anywhere between the law enforcement has completely taken this thing over and sorted all potential legal problems, or it is like the most ridiculous conspiracy theory imaginable. But it seems unlikely to be something that's boring, whatever happened. I think that's fair. Just nothing to see here isn't the explanation.
Okay, finally, Chainalysis. What's going on?
So, okay, we talked about this before. Lots of people have talked about this. So Chainalysis famously estimated something like 1% of crypto transactions were involved in, on-chain crime. And their definition, clearly stated in all of their written documentation, is on-chain crime means crypto-native crime is hacks, protocol exploits, bridge exploits, that kind of stuff. They exclude explicitly, I think their examples are money laundering, drug dealer selling stuff, whatever, that kind of thing, capital control evasion. And okay, their comment associated with that is that these things look on-chain like any other transfer. I mean, if I transfer money to you, it's just two wallets paying some money, and the fact that we're sitting next to each other and it isn't a capital control problem isn't visible. And I mean, you can't, if you were in China, it would be a capital control. Okay, whatever, fine. So it is believable that those things are similar. Many people have represented that number to say that only 1% of what's being transferred on chain is criminal activity, when they clearly they could say it to be not. In the most recent report, the preview of which they issue a summary blog post and whatnot, and the report is coming out shortly. I think it's with press now. Changes the definition and says that in cases where they have off-chain information demonstrating that a given set of transactions are related to crime, they will add that to their total. Now, they work with law enforcement, so they get information from law enforcement. Similarly, I mean, you can download court cases and you can see that certain wallets are associated with crime. So, there's lots of ways to get those numbers. So that is a change in definition. They acknowledge that you, of course, can never know every crime that's occurred in the world. You probably can't even get every court document proving a given crime occurred. So it remains a lower bound, but the things are going to start to go up. This is an expansion and a change in the definition. Whether this is in reaction to some of our work, this UNODC report that was published recently that we talked about, that Bitrace was quoted about the quantum, it's many tens of billions of dollars of Tether associated with known scam type things. I mean, I would say if we adopt Chainalysis's new definition and we just substitute in what Bitrace has told us that the UN has sort of endorsed as a reasonable estimate, they already need to revise their things up very, very significantly. I mean, everyone's going to have different piles of police report, legal document type information, but those numbers are going to start to go up a lot, I suspect.
Also, I think I would point out, right, that there are many different ways to sort of like, I wouldn't, misrepresent is a bit harsh, but to present this information. So for instance, let's say now you have a blockchain that famously has very low gas fees, and basically the cost for transactions are almost zero. Let's call it Tron, for instance. And if you say were inclined to create the illusion that there is a whole bunch of activity on your blockchain by every day everybody gets free energy, and then you just kind of windmill as many transactions as you want, then obviously if I want to transfer, like create $100 worth of noise to cover up $1 worth of actual illicit transactions, that's 1%.
Well, okay, so I think no one is yet talking about estimates that include, I mean, you're describing effectively some version of securities fraud, investment-related misrepresentation. Your wash trading is not drug dealer money laundering. These are different sorts of crimes. So yeah, if I suspect everyone involved in crypto with any understanding of anything will acknowledge that more than 1% of transactions in many locations is associated with wash trading, appearance of volume type activities.
More so than that, it's just that it's very difficult to come out with a number to say that, okay, hand to heart, only 1% of transactions on, say, the Tron blockchain are illicit, because there's just such a huge volume which you don't know, all I'm saying is that you don't know, because you don't know whether they have any economic value.
But I mean, economically meaningless transactions is a different sort of maybe there's different categories here. So if you're saying anything that's sort of suspicious at all,
no, that's not what I'm saying. No, what I'm saying is that by creating a whole bunch of noise, you can actually dial down that number.
Okay. So yes, okay. So if you were to say, interesting. Yeah, so if you think that a reasonable number of transactions are wash trading to generate noise to whatever confuse people, that contributes to the denominator in the fraction of questionable flow, and in some sense it should be removed if the project is, or project affiliated people, and I mean, we know people get paid to market make to do volume on tokens, so this is an acknowledged thing that happens. If you remove that from the equation, you get a smaller denominator, which for a given amount of known crime will push up the rate. Okay,
significantly.
That's interesting.
So what I'm saying is that if you have $100 worth of transactions, 99 of those were wash trading, and just to cover up that $1 which is an illicit transaction, technically 100% of the transactions are illicit. Yeah, okay. I mean, this is just a very extreme example.
If 90% of the volume is wash trading, then the real fraction that's dodgy is 10 times what you first estimated it to be. Whether that's 2% to 20% or whatever. Yeah, okay.
And it's challenging because that's, one, difficult to prove, two, difficult to identify, not impossible, just challenging to identify. But definitely it makes it easier for people who want to massage the numbers and present them in a way that's holistically more favorable. You can,
No, that's interesting. I mean, to compare it to traditional finance for a moment, there's some amount of bad money that flows through banks all the time, whatever. I mean, of course there is. But banks don't have really the ability to go to the major payment service providers and submit just massive lists of unnecessary transactions because A, they get charged for them, and B, somebody is going to say, what? This is not. While there have been incidents where banks en masse created accounts for customers those customers didn't want, whatever has happened in a number of countries. Wells Fargo is an example of a bank that's done that. I don't think that Wells Fargo ever set up millions of whatever, they got fined for this, for accounts they shouldn't have, and then instructed the payment system to send money among all of those accounts to push up the flow numbers, right? That's not a thing I think that's ever happened. If that's happened, I would be surprised.
But it's something you can do in this case,
which absolutely
makes it very difficult to say only 1%. It's a sexy number, right? I mean, like, who doesn't want to say, less than 1% are illicit transactions? It's like, saying less than 1% of opioid users will ever become addicted.
There's what is the 1% are good people? Anyway, that's a different reference. That's an old political comment.
So, on that note, thank you for tuning in. Thanks for all the likes, subscribes, comments.
So the Chainalysis, the full report should come out. People should read this and consider how much higher the historical ratios should be revised. given what we're starting to learn about how prevalent scamming and money laundering type activities, because laundering the proceeds of pig butchering scams is money laundering that should be counted in that total per their definition. So the historical numbers should be revised up.
And on that note, thank you for tuning in. Have a great weekend, everybody. We'll see you again next week. Keep those comments and those likes and subscribes coming in. We appreciate it. Thank you. Bye-bye.